think being really open of saying we don't know what they are and that's okay. But what we're going to do is make the best judgments we have based on what we know. We have to shift. We have to shift thinking the the worst risk here is standing still.
Welcome back to CZ and Friends, where we explore how legal leaders are shaping the future of business and beyond. I'm your host, Cecilia Ziniti. Today, I'm joined by Holly Hogan, a legal executive known for helping innovative companies scale while navigating novel legal challenges. She spent nearly a decade leading legal at Automattic, guiding the company through global litigation, privacy, AI strategy, acquisitions, investment rounds. Most recently, she served as general counsel and residence at the law firm Mayer Brown, and now she's stepping into a new chapter, having just done her first week as general counsel at Deepgram, which is a frontier voice AI company, something that I get kind of excited about for my Alexa work, so I can't wait to dive in. Holly is known for bringing originality to legal leadership, making strategy customer obsessed, AI forward, and aligning with company values. She and I have known each other for, gosh, maybe 10 years through L Suite and other things. So excited to have you on the show. Holly, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Cecilia. I'm really excited to see you. And we're having a virtual coffee this morning, which is one of my favorite things to do with people.
Oh, well, it's fall, so I'm doing the pumpkin spice thing. I guess Blue Bottle's got it with like some pepper in there. Delicious.
Yeah.
Let All right, so let's start with Mayor Brown. This GC and resident concept could be kind of interesting for our listeners. It's sort of like entrepreneurs and residents that VCs do. What was the goal of it, and what did you set out to do, and did you do it?
Yeah. So it was a great experience. So Mayor Brown started this program, I want to say, I think it was 2023. They're the first law firm to do it. And as you said, model after VC in residence. And it's really an opportunity to come in and I think of it a bit like immersive knowledge sharing. So I was able to take a step back, think about legal work from a different horizon of not just getting into it day to day, but really how law firms and in-house counsel work together. And so there's a couple different things. Like I came in there really, I think, with the intent and what they wanted was to talk a lot and work with them on just what's the unique challenges that we face as tech companies. They're trying to be and are very AI forward, very innovative in how they approach legal services. And so really digging in on that. So I did a lot of different things. I worked with different practice groups on how to position themselves for what clients really need. I did a lot of one-on-one sessions with individual partners and some associates who sought me out, which I thought was amazing. I was like, good for you. Like, oh, you're getting at it. And then working on some other AI initiatives. So it was a really great time to be in that role. And I loved it. And it's great people. They're really genuine. I've been fortunate both at my law firm I practice at as a litigator and here just to work with good, genuine peoples. It was a great opportunity for me and I hope and think also for them.
Do you did it? Did you see anything about kind of like how the firm views clients, or like what was it like to be on the other side again? Like, because I feel
Yeah.
like I love my outside counsel.
Yeah.
Like, it's something that I think deeply about now with at GCAI is that
Yeah.
you're using AI for some stuff, maybe going to outside less for that counseling work. How does the firm view it? How did you view it? Was there ever a like, did you have to change how you spoke because you're at a law firm now? Give us a little bit of a window into the experience.
I didn't. I actually I fell in more seamlessly than I expected. Although I definitely had to do the switch from when I went from a law firm to in-house, went PC to Mac, and then had to go Mac to PC back again, I was struggling. I couldn't find any buttons for 3 days. Like that part was hard. But in terms of how I spoke, actually not. I felt like there was I think a lot of curiosity and interest. Because when you think about it, and I think by my own experiences too, working with outside counsel, you're just so busy in the moment. Which I think this program is a good one because you're so busy. There's so much going on. I don't always have the time I like to have to talk about our experiences and how it's different and how it's unique. And it feels so natural to us because we're just living it. But there's like a window of visibility they don't have into what it means when, gosh, every day you're bouncing around between employment law and a product launch and some media inquiry and an HR issue and a regulator rights issue. And that's like before lunch, right? And so having to move at that kind of velocity, like those kind of insights, I think, things they were really, I think it was like a real curiosity about what is your day-to-day like and how can we better serve you and how can we be not just a subject matter expert, but actually a real trusted advisor with you. So I think that kind of curiosity really struck me as being interesting, and just how much my role there was to expose some visibility that you just don't get sometimes in the day to day because everyone's just working through whatever thing is happening at the moment.
Love that. No, I remember when I was an associate at Morrison Forrester, we had bring your general counsel to lunch day or something like that, to
It's
work
great.
day. And they brought in GCs doing exactly what you said. And at
Yeah.
the time, as a young associate, it was inspiring to see that. But
Yeah.
you're right, homing in on this, like it's a different job, like,
Yeah.
right. And so being a general counsel, it's really just like a superset where your legal skills are good, but the ability to do the employment, the securities matter, the privacy matter, the global matter, all kind of before lunch. That's
Yeah.
definitely been a theme throughout the
Yeah.
show. So let's take us there. So let's take us back now to Automatic. So
Yeah.
what does Automatic do? How big is the company? And tell us a little bit about your journey there.
Sure. So Automattic is probably best known as the stewards of WordPress, which is the open source software that powers about 40% of the web is using that to build a website. We had a hosted version of it called WordPress.com. We also have Tumblr, Day One, a journaling app. There's VIP, which is a more enterprise version. So it's really, if you think about it, I describe as anyone from my mom to large media organizations and NASA can use our services to build a website. When I joined, gosh, there was a couple hundred people, and at our peak, we were going up to several thousand. We were up to 2,000 people. Went through just rapid change, just so much growth, so much change from the business perspective, and also launching into new things. I remember we went into a payments vertical. It's like, oh, I'm going to learn payments law now, right? Or we acquired Beeper. I got to learn about messaging. So just a constant change in that trajectory. And then we went from a phase where the internet was not regulated, and I mean very, very lightly, and I think everyone thought it was lovely, and now there's just a lot more opinions around it and a lot more rules around it. And so growing up through that experience, I came in as the second lawyer, and then took over the team, a little bit of time in there from there, and just moving the team through that change, going from just the team growing, the company growing, the landscape and everything around us changing. It was a great ride. It was a fun ride.
So you were the second lawyer at this
Yeah.
tech company.
Yeah.
Grows. It's powering, did you say 60% or 40% of the
So
internet?
the open source software powers 40%. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And so what stands out? I mean, what are you most proud of from your time there?
It's a hard pick. It's a really hard pick because we did a lot of really cool things. I think so, some of it is moving things, is that the whole aspect of growing things up. I would have to say one of the things, actually the thing I think I'm most proud that the team did, and it's actually something I had nothing to do with, but I'm comfortable, I think very comfortable and proud of, is there was a really big case against the in Turkey trying to remove content that was critical of the government there. And over a very, very long, it started before I even got there. And we continued to press it and go through. And it's really stood alongside our user, who was someone who was exposing a view around what they saw as inadequacies in their government and things the government should be doing better. And it was taken down in order to be taken down, and fought and slogged through it for, I think it started before I got there. So I think it went on for 9 years of really just standing behind, continuing to press, continue to ask, continuing to push through there, and eventually got a victory, a really big victory I mean, it was a long time coming, but being able to have the success of, against all odds, really sticking through that. I think that's something that's really unique from a legal perspective. But I am also proud of, gosh, we launched really cool AI features. We help the business grow as a team. I think our team, I mean, every legal team says they're special. So I'm gonna brag on our team though in that regard of really being super business forward and being, I think, actually really, we get lots of comments that we were the best legal team folks I've ever worked with, that they felt like we were thought partners and not just lawyers. So I think that some of that too is a piece that I really, and I'm giving you two. It's hard for me to pick. I was there for so long. It's hard to,
No, no, look. I mean, I
yeah,
think we're proud that like some great themes to pull out there,
yeah,
which is like the ability to like really fight for what's right. It sounds
yeah,
like
yeah,
having a company, allow you to do that. So not only being at a company that is on the right side of principle, but
yeah,
also giving the resources over almost a decade to
yeah,
actually stand up and do it. And then, of course, the legal issues I'm sure were novel and interesting as well. And
yeah.
so, yeah, that's a great one. And then separately, the like just, growth of the team in general. So what about leadership? So you come in, Did you come straight from a firm or like give us a little bit of the journey?
Yeah, I did. So I came in, I was an IP litigator. If you look back at my background, it both makes sense and makes completely no sense with what I'm doing. So I was most recently before Automattic an IP litigator. I was doing patent litigation. And really enjoy my time at the firm. I enjoy being I think you were a litigator too. So you'll probably appreciate this. I liked it, but also didn't know it was something I wanted to do for the next 30 years and be fully committed to that. So I liked the random questions from clients and they would call. I really like being on site with clients. And I thought, I think I'm going to like being behind just one mission. So I came in at a time there was just a few of us and it was things would come in and it was who's available to jump on that football. That was who can catch this, who can grab this fire. And then moving into a place of, wow, we have to actually be orderly about things because there's multiple of us and there's a lot of people around the company and we have structure and process. And the company was going through that too. You were moving from the place where you just knew that Bob was the person to go to about something to, hey, we want to have some sort of structure around this, but we also don't want to be this we're not a big company, right? You don't want to have like layers of bureaucracy. And so that pivot from just an organizational perspective is really fascinating to go through the
Wow.
team.
Okay. So what are some of the structures? So a lot of our listeners are in this kind of
Yeah.
scaling journey or, maybe are new to in-house or things like that. What would you say? So you said you got to put in the structure. So not everybody's calling Bob. I hear
Yeah.
that. Bob, we love you, but like it's about scale. So
Yeah.
what are the things that you did? Did you do
Yeah.
like just getting super brass tacks, like an
Sure.
intake system, or did you do like do you like to assign kind of lawyers to business units, or like what are your thoughts on kind of legal team management?
Yeah. So we have a complex business at Automatic because there were so many different product lines and then there were so many different subject matters. So, and also we were a small agile team. So you could think of 30 positions that we could fill, but obviously that's not realistic and that's not what the company needs. And none of those people would be working full time. So what I tried to do was take an approach of thinking about what are the skills I need to hire for that I would describe as someone's home base. So someone, when we were going into payments, hiring somebody who knows a lot around fintech and those roles because I know nothing, literally nothing about it. But also having curiosity and agility and wanting to learn and grow and do different things. And I think that's the key, especially at a fast-paced company, is you're going to need to hire like the person who knows this or knows that. But you also want people that are willing to grow and jump into things that they know absolutely nothing about too. And so having that kind of piece. I also would really tell the folks on the team, and we did do some, I think, for product and commercial, we would pair somebody on the team with the different business lines. And the way we approached it was you really should feel as much a part of that team as you are a part of the legal team. So you're going to their meetups. You are in the meetings, a lot of my one-on-ones with our team members wasn't just about the legal issues. It was about where's the business going? What are the metrics? What they're trying to hit? What are the challenges that they're facing? And so really being baked in and part of it. And then I think because of our size, folks had to be managing a couple of different product lines, a couple of different business divisions. But I think they like that agility, but also rooted in something that they're really, really good at and had a home base in.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, we've had that as a ongoing theme throughout the pod is like David Morris and I, the XQC of Sneak, on his pod episode, he said kind of what he said, which is like you go to the meetups and you make it happen, get on a
Yeah.
plane if you need to, or
Yeah.
virtually make sure you're in the Slack or whatever it is. And we concluded, this is funny that my shining moment as product counsel was when the product management leadership had a like an offsite where they were going to one of these fake skydivings with a big fan, whatever. And I got invited, and I was like, I'm part of the team, and I'm
Yeah.
like, kind of like, and it really is helpful for the legal advice, right? Because you know exactly where the business is going to be going. You've got to your point their metrics, so you can say, all right, if we've got to hit Y revenue, how do we revise our agreements to get there? Or
Yeah.
if we've got, a drag on new signups, can we help, kind of streamline with some marketing
Absolutely.
campaigns and, how can we make sure we get consent in a durable way to do that? So lots of fun examples. All right. So before we leave Automatic, any crazy stories or fun thing that you would want to relay? It's okay if you don't have anything.
No, my crazy stories there is just ending up with this. I ended up having dinner with the king and queen of Jordan with all these other tech companies, which was really which was very, I mean, which I mean, I remember walking in there and going, I have absolutely no idea what you're supposed to call them, right? I'm walking in like you see like, hi King or hi Queen Rania, like what do you,
That's
um,
amazing. What an experience. Wow. Great. I
yeah,
love it.
and just getting that they were doing, I think, an intention around working more with tech companies and getting some visibility there. And also, this is at the time where there was a lot of concern around terrorist content online, and there was certainly a lot of coming out of Europe about how to handle that, and they wanted to have a voice and perspective and what that would look like. And so, came all the way out here and met with folks and gave us a lot of information and perspective on things. But it was definitely there's like this Frank Sinatra song where I think there's some part of it where it's like I've dined with the king or something. I was like, oh, I've actually done that one. So,
Look at
yeah,
that. I love
yeah,
that. Yeah, you get these kind of like when you have these moments in your life where you're like, this is cool. That's amazing. I love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
All right. So on that note of like you said, okay, you didn't know how to address the royalty. That's okay. I don't either. But you've said on in another context, you said sometimes we don't know all the answers or we as lawyers don't have all the answers, and that's okay. So I agree with that. You know, you got to be able to look it up. Why is that mindset important generally?
Mhm.
And then now in this AI moment.
Yeah, yeah. And I think especially doubling down on this in AI, and that's what really came up for me because I feel like there can be a hesitancy not just on the legal team, but if the legal team, it can spread out to the rest of the company. If there's this sentiment of we don't know what the answers are, so therefore we don't know what to do, and therefore we stay still. That's there's like this worry, and I was hearing a lot. This is gosh 2 years ago or so. I'd be going to different events and just hearing a lot of lawyers saying, "Gosh, I don't want my team putting their code into this, and I don't want them using this. And we gotta make sure there's protections that people don't know." And I'm thinking, the the worst risk here is standing still, and we don't know what the rules are. And I think being really open of saying we don't know what they are, and that's okay. But what we're going to do is make the best judgments we have based on what we know. We have to shift. We have to shift, and that's fine. And that's I think. Especially, I think, as the head of the legal team, as legal team as a whole, really conveying that message. So there's not this. I think there's sometimes that people don't appreciate the fact that for a lot of folks in business roles, they worry about legal risk because they don't know what it is. They don't know how they don't have the different levels of comfort that we have. And so if we're conveying hesitancy or uncertainty in a negative way, that trickles down. And so I think it's more embracing the unknown and let's find a path through the fog. And if we come out and make good decisions, we'll be going to come out on the other side in a great way. And if we have to adjust, we have to adjust, but it's probably just going to be around the edges because we're going to make good decisions to get there where we think things are going.
Love that. I mean, I think it's like, you know, another guest on the pod who's one of my favorite lawyers ever, Tina Patel. She's like, you got to make the call. Like, you know, like
Mhm.
take the information that you have and make the call, and you cannot shy away from making that judgment. So that's kind of in line with what you said. So where did you end up going with using? And then I mean, obviously, you don't have to betray confidences, but in terms of what's your view now? Obviously, you're in an AI company, but AI coding or using AI to code it's certainly a reason here at GCAI why we're able to move so fast. We've got a less than 10% engineering team supporting 700 odd customers, and we're able to do it because of AI. And
Yeah,
if we had that hesitancy, we wouldn't be there. So I guess question for you is like, where did you end up, and then how did you guard against the risk? Because
yeah,
there is risk,
sure.
but what did you do?
So what we found is we were getting a lot of questions from a lot of people in a lot of different areas. And that was also just process wise, like, this is going to be reactive and very slow if we keep doing that. So the approach that we took was twofold. One is really thinking about not like subject matter, like privacy and IP and different pieces of it, but really how our team's going to be using it. Let's get them guardrails and what I would describe as laying down runways. Like let's like build the asphalt. Let's lay it down. Let's build runways. They know where to go. They know the directions to take and how to move and get that plane and get rolling and make it really simple. So for coding, for example, we sat down with our engineering leads and instead of taking every single question, and certainly questions would come up, but we came up with something like 2 pages. Here's how to use it well. Here's the things to stay away from, and making it very clean and easy and getting it out there for like the marketing folks actually using AI for things. That's just like, don't put Mickey Mouse in your. I mean, it's not that much. It's not that different than what you're doing already, and giving them so those permission space. And then on the places where we're using on the consumer facing, where our users would be interacting with some AI tools, you're really thinking about there aren't rules yet about what kind of disclosures you need and what you need to say. But we could sit down as a team and think about consumer protection law is always about what does a user need to know? And if you think about like auto renewals, yes, there's like a lot of rules about that now, but it's really about what does someone need to know to make a good decision here about whether to buy a product. And so translating that to the AI space, what are things that users need to know to be able to use this well that we should let them know about? And so we sat down and worked through that and just got those pieces out. And then we did a marketing campaign. So we went around, talked to different teams, really got front and center and getting that guidance out there so people can move with it and move with it in a good way. And I think ended up in a spot where our company was very forward and embracing AI at a time where I think there was more hesitancy that I was seeing in other places.
I love that. All right. So switching gears a little bit,
Yeah.
let's go to just AI in general and AI for lawyers.
Yes.
Are you using it? It's okay if you're not, right?
I
This is
am.
not really a sponsored podcast, just about the fun of it. Are
Sure.
you using it? And then what, clear thinking, clear writing, clear prompting, all these things, like you've succeeded in your career from that clarity. How do you see that in a post AI world?
So I feel like there's for lawyers in particular, we're really good about asking questions because you're in a space, and maybe it starts with the Socratic method in law school. And then it goes through trying to figure things out and really digging down the layers deeper to find solutions and match things up. You'll appreciate, when you do interrogatories and you're responding to as a litigator, the quick response is probably not the actual response, right? You have to like really craft things well and work and ask a lot of questions on the inside to figure that out. I think it's actually a great skill that translates really well to using AI because it's really a series of asking questions and having a dialogue with the technology to come up with the information that you need. And I've been thinking a lot about, there's this idea, it's very classic, that clear writing reflects clear thinking. I would venture to say the clear prompting reflects clear thinking, that you're really powering through how you just parse things and ask the right questions and get to the information that you need in the right way. So I think lawyers should be some of the best adopters of AI in using it for work. So that's number one. And in terms of how I'm using it on a practical level, kind of brass tacks, I tend to find the most success with things I either really, really don't like doing or things I really, really love doing. So, I, you know, I think there's certainly grander plans of big structures that you can put around to make big projects faster, like absolutely. But I think if people are looking for places to start, I find, look, sometimes I have to send an email that I find to be uncomfortable. Um, and I'm like, I'll just put in it. I'm writing this. I feel uncomfortable for this reason. Can you help address that? And it comes up with something sometimes that, yeah, I'll work with, but that's in a good space. And then on the side of things I really enjoy doing, I like making PowerPoints, but I'm terrible at moving little pieces around. And so I'll use it for that. Or I also will use a lot for editing. Always felt like when I was in my litigation days, when you had 30 pages to say things, so like 3 bullet points, that I was a much better editor than I was a first drafter. I would remember I would take my brief, I would go down to the coffee shop and I'd sit there and I'd like edit sentences and now I sit and I'll go through when I'm writing something. It's different because now it's a contract or something very short, but use it as feedback to almost like a supercharged, like hyped up thesaurus to come up with a better draft of something. So those are just a couple of examples, but I think you have to lean into it because it'll make your job. It's some work to figure it out. It's a totally new way of thinking about things, but in the end, it's going to make things a lot easier and better.
I love that. I've been thinking about nothing but AI and legal for 2 years, and I don't
Yeah.
think I've heard anyone else so clearly articulate kind of
Thanks.
like the management of AI is now what we're called to do, right? This
Yeah.
like clear prompting, clear direction. I even think about now the buzzword is like agents, right?
Yeah.
Agents really is like people that you're asking to do things for you, and your success, as a general
Yeah.
counsel, managing a team, aligning people around ideas and around written communication, that's gonna shift to AI, at least in some fashion. So yeah,
Yeah.
I love that, and I love the supercharged thesaurus. I do like super Google as well, but it's the supercharged thesaurus idea of like I can make this piece of writing better, more clear, land my message, achieve the thing ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great, and I'm with you too on the craving the litigator days of just, like, really spending time, you and the draft and the
Yeah.
different pens and all this, but but I think that's one of the things that I think I guess, how do you encourage on a team people to
Yeah.
improve craft, right? So just like at leadership, like give us a little bit more. You give us a little bit of a window on leadership, but what do you do to bring up your team to that to the level it sounds like you are, not just with AI, but in general?
I think it's a lot of, and this is personal to me in my leadership style, what I found to be effective. But I think a lot of it is figuring out for each person what makes them tick, what makes them get up in the morning, what makes them excited, what kind of impact they want to have. And I think hiring for people that want impact, especially in tech, it's hard. You have to be resolute. You have to be able to work through challenge and ambiguity and hard things and fast pace. And so you want people that are drawn in by more than just this is like a fancy thing on name news site, right? And a shiny new thing, someone that really believes in what they're doing. And so I think starting there of giving people a lot of autonomy and experience to be able to do things with the right amount of guidance. You got a safety net there if needed, but really letting people move in that space. And I think really a lot of it is leadership is just day-to-day habits of being someone who does things like don't say the business, we're gonna go talk to the business, like we are the business, don't say that. Talking about not we cleared legal disclosures for this product launch. No, no, no. We helped launch the product, right? We helped our customers find clarity. We didn't do legal review for XYZ contracts. We helped close XYZ deals. Like really language and how you talk and frame things and really spending a lot of time that we would in our group meetings, I often found, especially as they got bigger, you get the question of like, what does everybody talk about? Like, there's a lot of people doing different things. What's going to be interesting? And we would spend a lot of time really talking about how we serve our fellow colleagues, how we make their lives better, how we help advance the mission of this company, and really orientate around that versus like, here's my 3 updates for the week. I mean, we also were blogging companies, so it helped that a lot of that you could write about ahead of time, and we have internal blogs to do those sort of things. But I think really spending, I think it's just like where you spend your focus and attention as a leader with the team, and spending it on those things and creating that kind of culture. It's just a lot of like little tiny things that over time build up.
I love that. It's actually on theme of we had done a career panel, and it turns out that things that are good for you as a individual attorney in your career, like expressing your wins as business goals, are actually good for the company, good for the team at large too,
Yeah.
because you get this thing where, I remember one time one of my stakeholders was like, adding legal to do the paperwork. And I was like, that's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
the
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And it's like, and that person, and I ended up speaking with them and saying, hey, look, getting this deal done, like, me and my team, we're helping you close this, multi-million dollar thing. And it's going to discourage the team to do that. And then I thought, I want to make sure that the team has exactly the mindset you said, where it's like, obviously you got to get the
Yeah.
job done, but also do it in a way that reflects you understand that it's not just paperwork, that it is actually,
Yeah.
you're advancing the goals of the business. So yeah, I love that. And I love also like doing it at the kind of the team meeting level too, where
Yeah.
words matter, right? Like this is, we've been talking about this whole time that like, clarity of thinking, clarity of thought. Like if you actually think that your job is the word red line, like, yes, red line should be amazing. I'm super nerdy about it.
Yeah.
Like we do that, but it's like you're doing it with a purpose. I love that
Yeah.
sentiment.
Yeah. And I would actually say something that's struck me as a thought in the last year or so. This is, the time in the GC and residence role and thinking about the practice of
Yeah,
law in
yeah.
a different way is in a lot of ways, your job as a lawyer on the commercial side in particular is you are selling to the lawyers on the other side of the deal. You have to have, that doesn't mean that you give in on everything. And in the same way that our salespeople aren't going to like make up a product that doesn't exist or put in things that we're not going to be able to do, right? But you want to set up a situation in which you've got a reasonable set of terms that takes care of everybody and gets them what they need reasonably, gets us what we need. And if it's not clear, you have to think about different ways to handle that. So in a lot of ways, you're actually selling to those folks. There is an audience for this who is the lawyers on the other side of the deal, and that is your sales counterpart in a way. So that's my latest thought experiment around this.
I love that. I read a book called To Sell is Human sometime,
Oh, interesting.
and it
Yeah.
and it makes that point that essentially everything we all do, including teaching. So obviously I teach
Mm,
classes, is like you're conveying knowledge to someone and you have a goal, which is to move them, to influence them, to learn the thing, to do the thing. And
yeah. is a psychology, pop psychology type of thing from more than 10 years ago, but it's very influential in my legal practice and thinking exactly
Yeah.
as you explained, which is that ultimately all of us are in the influence business, whether we kind of like it or not. And so I think that's a really astute point. Would you equate that with being customer obsessed? Any good examples that jump out at you? Yeah, I think so. I think it's another pivot off of that. I mean, one of the things, and this comes from, I've been fortunate to work at companies that really care a lot about their customers and doing right by them and helping them succeed. And so that I think you have to take the company and their values and you have to really make that infuse how you work as a lawyer. So a lot of times when we were even in daily practice, so there's from tactile things to big picture things, having that approach really changed how we did things. So some of the things you come across that are more routine, like trying to do red lines, trying to put together a contract, doing, if you're on the consumer side, doing disclosures. If you're thinking about what does the customer need to know here that I need to help make sense to them, that makes a lot of it easier instead of, if you've got some sign up flow where you've like wedged in some, like, sounds like a prescription drug ad, right? Like just like of disclosures, like that's not even like fulfilling the point of what the law is about, which is that you're just supposed to understand that they're going to get billed and how often they're going to get billed and these different things about it, right? So think putting that perspective. And then times where you have tough decisions and it's like, gosh, we could go this way or that way. And what's going to be the thing that decides it for us? A lot of times I feel like, especially in legal context, if you go with what's going to be best for the user and what's going to support their experience with your company in the right way, I think that's what gets you there. That's what helped us when we were fighting this case in Turkey for a long time and on the automatic side of really thinking about this is what's best for the user and this is I think good for our platform as a whole and our users in their entirety. So let's keep going on this. And when we were doing things in other spaces and opening up opportunities where we were PPR and how we did privacy compliance and the things that we made available to our users, a lot of that was driven by what do we think is going to be useful and resourceful to them.
Love that, the customer obsession. See it in lots of jobs. So on that topic, you recently started a new role. Tell us about the new gig.
Yes, yes. I've been here 2 weeks. So this is the end of my second week at Deepgram, which is a voice AI company for the enterprise. They do a lot of really exciting work to enable businesses to use voice AI in their own applications and working through their own service with their own end customers. So I was really drawn in, obviously, as you could probably tell from I have a lot of affinity towards AI and see it as the future and really wanted to get closest I could get to where the action's happening. And being at a company building a model was the place to do that. I was also drawn into the fact that they're solving the really hard challenges of voice, which is it's just another layer of complexity. And the more you dig in, the more you realize all of these little finer points around how do you know when someone's done speaking? How do you know when someone's asking a question versus saying a statement? How do you know what language someone's in? Coming like all of like the little finite, minute things you have to do. How do you get the pacing right? So that there's not these weird, awkward pauses, but it's also not too short, too long. So I love the technical challenge and the really hard things that they're doing in the space. So I'm very excited about it. And I also just feel like voice is a place where it's there's a lot. I mean, this is true of all AI, certainly. So but especially in voice, there's so much more to go. We're so early in early innings of what we can do there. So I'm really excited about it. It's a great team. It's remote, like Automatic was. So I'm able to kind of flex into that muscle again. So just a lot of things that excited me, and I think in a great spot to jump back in.
Awesome. Voice privacy is I was product counsel on Alexa, and these issues around literally like what you described, pointing of like, when does it know you're not talking anymore? 'Cause it's natural, like, and even in a remote context, being able to tell, am I done speaking? Am I not? I always tell this story that my spouse, so I'm Italian, shocker. We talk a lot and we talk loud and we talk at the same time. But it was funny when I first visited my now spouse's family. I'm like, it was like they had the talking stick. It was like, I'm done talking now. Would you like to speak? And it was like for Alexa or these voice devices, that's a much more natural or, it's much easier to tell in
Yeah.
that environment. But like for us, we're talking all the time. And it's just, it'll be interesting to see how these kind of like human constructs
Yeah.
and go with AI. So I'm like, I'm on the Deepgram website and it says something like model designed for conversation, not transcription. So
Yeah.
it's literally, are we talking to bots? What are we doing with the Deepgram product?
Yeah. 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 So it's building in these layers. You could think of it as in some ways it's putting in all of that. Like there's released a model yesterday called Flux, which we're really excited about, and which handles some of these really complicated things like interruptions and like all of this like pacing and moving through things in a way that's really, really dug in on those really hard, challenging problems. So it's those things, like all of that around speech is where a lot of their technology is at and where the focus is at and where I actually think a lot of the promise is. Really, if you want to make voice agents pass the audio Turing test, which our founder says you could talk to it for 5 minutes and not realize that it's a rope that's not a human because he's like you could get away with it. He was speaking us, you could get away with like 30 seconds. If you went
Two
really
full
move it,
minutes. Is
yeah,
that
like
or you said 5 minutes. All
5
right.
minutes, like, that's the goal of, like, moving towards that, that is the peak of the mountain. You've gotta handle all of this nuance, and the idea behind the technology is to make it so that it feels conversational and natural and helpful, and also the part that I think is, just from a user perspective, really fascinating is how this might change our just interaction with technology. Because for a long time we've been doing a lot of this and a lot of typing and tapping, but voice and the things that we're doing now, just talking, that's the most innate way that we've always communicated as humans. And not that the screens and the clicks are just like going away, but what does that look like going in the future? I often wonder, are lawyers going to get back to dictating, right? Because
My family always makes fun of me that I'm, like, obsessed with voice dictating and Siri. I'll be, like, in an elevator and talking, and
yeah,
the elevator thinks that I'm talking on that, and I'm talking on my phone. But I
yeah.
agree. I think we're gonna get there. I am, like,
Yeah.
a voice obsessed. So, not every lawyer is gonna lean into that because obviously privacy issues, legal issues. So, I gotta ask you, like, there's the ELVIS Act, the Federal Take It Down Act. People are worried about voice cloning. Obviously, Scarlett Johansson had a claim against OpenAI, which I think was a good one because it was very clear that, well, I don't know how very clear. I don't want to editorialize too much, but the claim was that OpenAI had used another actor to recreate a voice very similar to ScarJo. And well, OpenAI didn't help its case when Sam Altman tweeted her when they launched this voice model. So, with all that background, I guess with all these laws that aim at voice cloning, deep fake, how do you see that evolving if your company is hard charging towards 5 minutes of passing the Turing test, which again, for listeners, that means for 5 minutes, you are talking with an AI and you do not know you believe it is a human. That is the future. So with that being where your company's going, the law being what the law is, what's going to happen? Give us some predictions or give us some like way to think about that.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. And I think, in some ways, it's interesting because right now, folks get so deceived by text, right? I mean, like phishing. I mean, I don't know if it's the number one way that cybersecurity events happen, if it's phishing or not, but it's definitely like up there. And so I think that it's been a challenge that's in some ways always existed, right? Sort of know something's accurate or not, and coming in different spheres. Like certainly it's another vector and it's more dimensional. And so there's different risks there, but it's also a thing that I think like building responsibly and moving along in that space. I have a lot of confidence in the fact that when the technologies you've got this like embracive of like new and form of technologies that those things get worked out responsibly and figured out. So I actually, in some ways, I'm a little bit more focused on a lot of like the opportunity there and the way to do things and the way to do things differently. So obviously, I want to be mindful of the risks too and all of that. But it is a place where there's just been a history of technology of working through those risks and doing it responsibly. And I think that's a lot of I think what the part you come at it from a legal point of view of having that just lens of wanting to be and build responsibly. And it's good to be at companies that want to build and be responsibly, which is I've always been really fortunate to be a part of. So I yeah, I that's I think that's my overall view on it.
I love it. I love it. So I'm going to hold you to that. I'm gonna send you a podcast invite for 5 years from now,
Yeah.
and we'll see if it's AI Cecilia and AI Holly, and
Yeah.
we'll go at it. I love that. I also
Yeah.
love the comparison to text, right? Like this new technology, there's always been more and better ways. Like fraudsters and bad people have always
Yeah.
been at the forefront of technology, including email, right? And I mean
Yeah.
that's more the original, with spam and all that. So I love
Yeah.
that point that we'll get there. You've had some memorable moments. We already talked about dining with the king and queen of Jordan. Apparently, Senator Wyden came to a talk of yours. You didn't know that he was there. What happened, and who's Senator Wyden?
So he, is the person, the governor, he and Representative Cox, putting together CDA 230, which was just the law that embarked the internet. So it was during COVID, and I was doing an online presentation, and I realized about halfway through that he was on was on the line watching it, which first of all I almost fell on my chair, but I was just so honored. But also I think it reflected how cool is it that this is someone who cared so much. I mean, certainly, obviously, it was one of his signature bills, so certainly he does. But what are we, 25 years later? And he's still going to talks about this issue that are, it wasn't some amazingly large event or anything, but he's still going to. I said, that's just really special. That's really cool that somebody cares that much about the internet and technology and moving forward. I just, sometimes people feel like the government doesn't get it, and there's a lot of regulation that can be very difficult. And it I think it's also nice to see the side of it of people who care and are trying to support innovation and continue, like, believe in it that strongly that that long later they'll go listen to some general counsel at a company, talk about their CA
Yeah, just
litigation.
sharing 40% of the internet, to be fair.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, give yourself some credit.
yeah,
That's an incredible story. All
yeah.
right, so let's move on to the lightning round. What's a
Okay.
book, podcast, or article that has shaped how you think about leadership?
So very recently, I've been reading I think it's called Decision Quality by Adam Grant, who I think folks know is an organizational psychologist. And he has a point that actually you should be changing your mind more often than you think you should be. And he bases it in looking at science and scientific research and how they build a lot of like hypotheses that they test out and change. And I like one of my favorite things has always been to change my mind about something. I feel like you learn something new, you grow and develop. And I'm really big on my teams of telling people that part of your job is to disagree with me, and help us come to better decisions. So I've certainly changed my mind on things over time. And so I think having an openness to that, I think especially being at a tech company where you're always challenging assumptions and you're challenging the way things have always been, even the thing that you think was so great and awesome you did as a legal team in 2018 at a tech company, that might not be relevant anymore, right? It probably isn't actually in the age of AI, especially. Everything's changing. So having that piece, I think is a
Hey,
good,
agility, right? But it's like agility plus humility. I love that.
yeah.
Any advice for listeners? They could be early career or maybe their first general counsel role. What's your advice?
Yeah. I would say to think a lot about putting yourself in positions, especially if you're early in your career, if you're at a law firm, think about how you can help people and how you can solve problems and put everything through that lens. I think I think the fascination of legal issues is obviously important and it's part of what drives the intellectual stimulation for the job. But I think really, really, really keying in on that, because that's so much of what the job is. Ultimately, you're helping people solve problems, and that translates into business development, that translates into networking, that translates into doing well at your job. So really putting everything in that context, think about things from that point of view.
Holly, if somebody listens to this conversation as a window into you and how you lead, any one principle you want them to take away?
Yeah. I used to say be a creative lawyer, but then I think that sometimes it kind of like a weird connotation. So I would say be an original one. Like, think about originality. I mean, this is at a personal level, what makes you you? And be that. I can say this now with age and experience. You sort of realize that actually being who you are and leaning into the best part of yourself is really important. Don't try to be anybody else. But also from a meta level at your company, what's unique and different about your company, and how can you put that into practice in what you do for your legal team? How can you reflect those values? I mean, if you're an open source company, be really transparent, be really open, because that's mode and the model of what the company is, really reflecting that and finding new and different ways to do things that are unique and original to your company. I think it makes the job a lot more fun too, much less cookie cutter and much more simulation and better job at the end.
Thanks for sharing your perspective. Where can listeners connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there, Holly Hogan, I think through a Google search. And that's probably the best place to reach me.
That was my conversation with Holly Hogan. She's reminding us that we can be who we are as lawyers, that tech can be a force for good, that you can stand up for what it's right. And she gave us lots of great leadership nuggets, including fun one that all of us lawyers are actually in sales. If you're thinking about how to bring AI into your practice, whether through experiments, cultural change, new systems, taking a new role, I hope this episode sparked ideas for you and your team. You can follow CZ and Friends wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our newsletter at gc.ai/newsletter for more conversations, tools, and takeaways for legal and business leaders and beyond. Thank you for listening.